Hello and welcome to my first video of 2024. Thank you for joining me. I hope you've all had a wonderful festive season and Christmas if you celebrate it, New Year's if you celebrate it as well. So in short, I hope you're all doing well. It's good to be back with you. I'm going to go through the usual motions before I get into today's topic and ask you to subscribe to the channel. Hit that subscribe button just below. It takes a few seconds, well, it takes a second, and it's free to do so. It doesn't cost you a penny or a cent or whatever currency you are, wherever in the world you may be. You can also, if you want to go that little bit further, click on the join button as well and become a member of the channel. That way you can help me to grow the channel, you can play your part, support me in growing this and reaching a wider audience and helping people around the world with a variety of topics. This channel is broadly about Microsoft 365 and subjects like Microsoft Entra, formerly Azure AD, and Purview, security, compliance and identity, M365 in general. But I also like to talk about other things as well, about life, the universe and everything, about mental health, well-being, neurodiversity, and all sorts of topics. And that will continue throughout 2024. And I'm going to start in that vein, actually. I'm going to start with a very personal account of what my life is like as an autism parent. That's why I'm in the chair today. I have a relaxed stance. It's the 1st of January at 11:30 a.m. as I record this, first day of a new year. And I got to thinking two things. I don't think I'm ready to do a tech video just yet. I've been so lazy and so relaxed and so switched off over the past week or so in this Christmas period that I just want to not get too focused into tech just yet. But I was thinking that I do get asked a lot, and I do get a lot of questions when I'm talking to people, and I tell people that I have a son with autism, what that is like, how that impacts me and him and our family and friends in general, our lives in general. So I thought I'd take some time to try and answer some of those questions here on this video, just to give you a better idea of what life is like. So let's dive in. And really a bit of backstory is probably quite helpful. I'll try and keep it brief because I'm never that good at that. But my wife and I have two sons. My oldest son is now coming up to 17 early this year, and he is what we've learned that you would call neurotypical, in that he does not display traits of being on the autism spectrum. And so he is our oldest son. And then we have our youngest son, Oliver, who is coming up to 13 years old now. In fact, correction, he's coming up to 14 years old. And that is a scary thought because he doesn't seem 14. If you were to look at a picture of Oliver, if you were to see him as he is today, you wouldn't think he was a 14-year-old boy. Not by any stretch of the imagination. He still has very babyish features, and he acts and responds very much like a toddler would, shall we say. So when Oliver was born, he was our second and last child. We only ever planned to have two children, and we were delighted, obviously. And as he sort of grew into his first couple of years, we did notice some things that were of concern to us. Up until this point, we'd had no experience of autism. I had heard of autism, as I suspect most people had and have. And I'd seen one television program about autism, which demonstrated a young male individual of probably about the age Oliver is now, who was very, very clever and could reproduce artistically in detail buildings in the greatest detail. So that, to me, was, oh, that must be what people with autism are like. And boy, was I wrong. But as we progressed through our journey with Oliver, we noticed certain things that concerned us. He didn't seem to respond in the same way that our oldest son had. And he didn't seem to be developing. Our oldest son had been delayed in his speech. He spoke very, very late, but eventually his speech did come. And when he was around about almost 3, I would say, from memory. But Oliver, he wasn't getting that at all. And he was showing some signs of being distressed in certain situations, and we couldn't understand why. So we eventually went to the doctor. We were referred to a pediatrician who examined Oliver and very, very quickly suggested to us, in her opinion, in her professional opinion, that Oliver displayed all of the symptoms of being on the autistic spectrum. ASD, autistic spectrum disorder, as we've come to know what a lot of these terms and acronyms stand for. The first realization that you get from that is one of shock, disbelief, anger, denial. How dare they say that about our son? No, you're wrong. But very quickly, when we'd had time to process that initial reaction, we sort of thought, and we'd read up on autism and educated ourselves a little. And it's a continuing process. I'm learning things about autism even all this time later. It made sense. And it became indisputable. Now, the autism spectrum is a massive, massive spectrum. And you may have heard of the term Asperger's. And it's widely debated, rightly or wrongly. I'm not going to give an opinion on that, whether or not Asperger's still actually exists or not. Asperger's was, and perhaps is, a term for those individuals who are maybe on the very sort of high-functioning end of the autism spectrum, who can lead almost near enough as makes no difference a normal everyday life, and you wouldn't really know, apart from maybe some social skills or lack thereof, that they were any different from anybody else out in the world. And that term, Asperger's, has been, or tried to have been declassified or discontinued, and now we have one very, very large autism spectrum. And one of the most important lessons we've learned along the way is that no two people with autism are the same. If you have met one person with autism, you have met one person with autism. And people can be high functioning, low functioning. They can have sensory processing disorder and needs alongside of that as well. It's quite common for people on the autism spectrum to develop epilepsy also. So there are lots of combinations. No two people on the autism spectrum will present in the same way and have the same traits. What we did learn very quickly is that Oliver is definitely on the very extreme end of the autism spectrum. And that became apparent in how quick and easy it was for us to get a diagnosis. Certainly in the UK where we live, it's challenging. And I know it's different around the world in different countries. It can be a bit easier, a bit harder, depending on where you live. But we got to know other families in this process, and many of them were shocked at how quickly we got a diagnosis, because many families, it takes a long, long time, and they'll get that first diagnosis denied, and then they have to appeal that and go back and fight for that diagnosis. It can take a long time. With us, it was a short matter of months. And I think we first went into the process in something like approximately March 2012. We started having conversations with the pediatrician, and we received the official diagnosis of autism in paper, in black and white, on October the 1st, 2012. That was a Monday, and boy, what a day that was, and boy, what a week that was, because on that week, Oliver was diagnosed with autism on the Monday, and on the Friday, my mother passed away, so heck of a week. That led me on my own mental health journey of ups and downs that I've had over the last decade or so, and led me to a breakdown and self-realization and learning about myself as well. And I've learned a lot about myself in this process, for sure. But this one's not about me. If you want to hear more about that story, check out some of my other mental health and well-being videos that I have on the channel. So there we are. Up until the process of getting diagnosis, we went through all sorts of tests. We went through hearing tests. We went through occupational therapy. That was an eye-opener, because in occupational therapy, what that really involved was taking Oliver to a play centre with two very experienced therapists who we came to know and respect and like very much, and they worked with us over a period of many weeks, and they would challenge Oliver with certain stimulus. And the one sort of standout moment for me, where my wife Louise and I sort of looked at each other and sort of thought, yeah, this is indisputable, was the therapist threw a ball at Oliver, and he didn't catch it. He didn't try and catch it. And then she did it again. She threw it at him, and it sort of hit him gently, and he just didn't react. He didn't sort of fight back or throw it back or get upset or look at his parents for comfort and guidance. And the therapists, I think they sort of looked at each other as well, I seem to recall. And Louise and I often say that they exchanged a glance between themselves of, really, these parents don't know that their child has autism? So there you go. But lots of people get involved in the process. We had a multidisciplinary team, a committee of professionals from all disciplines involved in it. Dietary, because that was a big thing as well, what Oliver did and didn't eat. And sleeping patterns and all that sort of stuff. Touch wood. Oliver, touching wood very much here, Oliver has always slept very well from day one and continues to do so. We're very fortunate with that, because sleep is a big thing that many autism families have a big problem with. We know a lot of autism families, autism parents who are lucky if they get 1 to 2 hours sleep a night because of their children who have been diagnosed with autism. I can't imagine that. I don't think I'd be functioning anymore if I didn't get any sleep. I say that, but what I've learned about autism is that, and having autism in your life, in your family, is it makes you very resilient, and you can cope with and deal with things and situations that you never imagined that you would be able to. So I'm sure if we were in that situation, we would find coping strategies, and as we've done with the other things that we have in our life today. What were some of the early challenges that we had? It was always difficult taking Oliver out anywhere. I do remember a time very early in his life, this may have been just before or just after he was diagnosed, and my wife had a medical appointment, and I had to take my oldest son to his primary school, and it was around Christmas, funnily enough, and there was a nativity play on, and I attended the nativity play during the day. I'd taken the day off work, and I took Oliver with me to the play, and I just couldn't get him to settle. He was distressed. He was not happy in any way, shape, or form. He was screaming. I had to take him out. I had to take him out of the play, and I had to leave. So, and this is something that this situation does for you as families. You quickly find yourselves having to strategically split your family up in certain situations and decide which parent is going to go to which event, whereas we might have gone as a complete family to school plays and family days out and things like that. There were exceptions to this. We got away with a lot of things very early in our journey, where we would go every Sunday morning to a bouncy ball pit play centre, probably riddled with germs, but we did that every Sunday morning for a while, and both boys loved that and seemed to enjoy themselves. There was this slide, I recall, that was like this vertical drop, and both boys went down that with no hesitation. I didn't have the courage to do it. I'm the biggest scaredy cat going. Roller coasters, no way. Never been on one, never will. Total scaredy cat. But no fear of my boys at all, though. But gradually, slowly but surely, days out became more difficult. We would get in the car, we would start going somewhere, Oliver would become distressed, we'd have to turn back, we'd be out in shopping centres nearby trying to have a lunch out, go for a pizza or something like that, a nice little lunch out as a family, and Oliver would start screaming and thrashing, and this maybe doesn't sound like it's anything more than a normal everyday child tantrum that a toddler might have, just that sort of expected behavior. But if you've seen an autism meltdown, it is completely different. In that situation, the child can become a danger to themselves, and then less so at that age, but more so now, and we'll get to that, a danger to others as well. So there was this one time we were trying to go to Pizza Express in a shopping mall near where we live, and we used to go there quite often, and we had everyone together that time, and Oliver started thrashing in his pushchair, being a danger to himself, screaming, drawing attention to us, and that's hard to take as well, because you get people staring at you, you feel like you're being judged. You're probably not. People are probably being sympathetic, and you look at maybe his older generation, people looking at you and saying, why can't you control that child, sort of thing, and you imagine all these things being said. But we had to go, and my poor oldest son was like, oh, am I not going to get my pizza now? And it had an impact on him. Now, fast forward to today, my oldest son has become a fine young man. I could not be more proud of him, because he's just taken this in his stride the whole time. He has never once complained when we've had to change and adjust our plans because of Oliver. He's just got on with it. He's appreciated the struggles that we've got. And I'm so grateful to him for that, and I always will be. He's an absolute star, my oldest son. He really is. We've got two very different boys, you could not believe. But anyway, I'll try and fast forward a little bit to closer to today. And Oliver started attending things like nursery and then school. And we had our issues, certainly, but by and large, it was okay. We got him to go to school, and he attended a special needs nursery and a special needs school, and he was picked up from our home every day by a bus, which took him to and from nursery and school. And to be fair, that was going pretty well until January 2020, that awful year when everything changed. Up until that point, we'd had our issues. We would go to the nursery and school nativity plays, any sort of school event where my wife and I would turn up to see Oliver perform in a nativity play, for example. And we would see him, and he would always seem like he was the one who was most challenged by it. Like, he'd have this expression on his face of, why am I here? Why have they put me in this costume? Why do they want me to do this? And then he would spot us in the audience, and he would just look away from us as if, oh, why are they here? They're not meant to be here. They're meant to be at home. So very specific places where people should be at specific times. So that would quite often happen. And after those nativity plays, they would be sort of early afternoon. What should have happened after that was we would then go home, and then Oliver would come home on his bus. But once he'd seen us and he knew we were there, although he didn't want to acknowledge us, he also didn't want us to leave without him. We would always end up having to take him home early. So we had things like that, which were very, very challenging. Oliver's diet over the years has always been very, very limited. Many people with autism or on the spectrum have limited diets. Very plain food, very beige food, things like crisps or chips, as you would call them in the US, potato chips, chicken nuggets, fries, plain pizzas, plain cheese pizzas, nothing that is good or nutritious for him. As for drinks, it would all be fruit shoots, blackcurrant juice. To this day, that's all he drinks. The only time he'll drink water is when he's ill. He will happily drink water when he's ill, because we've convinced him that it's good for him and it will help him get better. So thankfully he's not been ill much in his life. 2 or 3 times tops he's had anything that's knocked him off his feet for a couple of weeks, which is very hard. Weirdly, when that happens though, the autism sort of drains out of him. It's very odd. He becomes less autistic when he's not well. It absolutely flattens him. And that is something that is not surprising to me, because during this journey, I've had a lot of self-realization about myself. A lot of things about my own childhood and development, when I realized about Oliver, suddenly made sense to me. Some of my struggles growing up and challenges fitting in and being picked on and teased and that sort of thing made sense to me. So I am without doubt on the autism spectrum myself. There is no two ways about that. I recently went and pursued a diagnosis for that to see if that were the case. And I got so far in the process. As an adult, it's even harder to get a diagnosis. It can take up to 5 years. I had an appointment with trained individuals and interview with them, and they sent me a letter afterwards saying that I certainly displayed enough of the characteristics of the autism spectrum to be considered diagnosed with that. But that letter in and of itself is not an official diagnosis. If I wanted to get that, I'd have to go through a process that would take 5 years, and that was enough for me. I don't feel like I need to rubber stamp it. I know in my head that I'm on there, and I always describe it to people that Oliver is pretty much me multiplied by 1,000. He's me to the max, which is a scary thought. But yeah. So many challenges, many refusals to do things, and many meltdowns at being asked to do things like self-care, things like cutting fingernails, toenails, cutting hair, have always been. Oliver has never had a proper haircut in his life. He's coming up to 14. He's never had a haircut, a real haircut. We've trimmed it in his sleep before. We've gone through phases where he's allowed us to do maybe one cut a night of his hair, one snip with the scissors after his shower. And it varies how effective that is. Fingernails and toenails, the same. We've done it in his sleep before. I've been very stealthy with that over the years. Weirdly now, he's really weirdly now, actually, you would think this would be the other way around. He is very happy and comfortable to have his toenails cut. And we will cut 1 or 2 toenails a night after he's showering out, no problem. But he does not like his fingernails cut at all. You would think that sensitivity would be the other way around. And Oliver definitely has sensory needs also, that is for sure, because those elements of self-care he does not care for at all. He does not like brushing his teeth. He does not like noise, particularly unexpected noise. He'll say, "What's that noise, Daddy?" Things like rain and dogs barking. These are things that can distress him. And when he gets really distressed, he will attack. He will act out. He will throw things. I've dodged out of the way of a few things over the years. He went through a phase of hitting my wife in that situation. He doesn't do that now, thank goodness. So, but yeah, lots and lots of interesting situations we've been in. I mean, not that long ago, a couple of years ago probably, I mean, I'm about 5'11", I would say, and Oliver was pretty small, and I was sort of down at his level trying to calm him down. And he's very slight, he's very skinny, he's very babyish, and he pushed me in frustration, in a reaction, and he actually pushed me off my feet, which astonished me that he could do that. But he doesn't know not to use the full force of his strength. In situations like that, people who are not neurotypical individuals, shall we say, know that they cannot use their full strength to restrain, to protect, to react. There's that restraint that will be present in them. Oliver doesn't have that. That is his lack of a filter. He doesn't have a sensory filter. He doesn't have a behavioural filter. It all just comes out. What you see is what you get. And that can be very challenging. Today, what I thought I'd wind up with is, because I don't want this video to be hours and hours and hours, and I literally could talk hours and hours and hours about this subject, is about what our day-to-day life looks like now in the post-COVID era. And COVID hit us really hard. I mean, it hit everyone hard, let's face it. It was a global pandemic, for goodness sake. Unprecedented. No one in the world was prepared for that. But it hit some individuals harder and more long-term. Oliver is definitely in that category, because up until that point, he was attending school. Then all of a sudden, everything closed. We all had to stay home, locked down, months and months and months. I think that was about March 2020 here in the UK that we were locked down. And then eventually, I think we came out that first lockdown in something like September-ish of that year, and schools started to open again, and we started to go back. And initially, we thought it was going to be okay, because the bus came, picked him up, off he went, and he went back. And we thought, oh, Because we were worried. We were worried that he would think, oh, the world has changed. I don't do school anymore. This is how my life is. I just stay home now. But he went back. He went back for a while, on and off. But the problem we hit then is that attendance, because of COVID, because of social distancing, became very sporadic. Inevitably, teachers, fellow pupils, all started testing positive with COVID-19. And in that situation, there was the isolation rules. So if someone tested positive, the class had to isolate for 14 days so you could go back, then you were off again, and there was no consistency. And routine and consistency is key to the majority of people with autism. And it's massively important to Oliver, knowing what he's going to do, what days of the week, what time of day, massively important. And it came to the point where that obviously confused him so much that eventually he just flat out started refusing to go to school. And that sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud. Well, and you can imagine people saying to you, well, you're the parents, you're in charge, just send him to school. It ain't that simple. It really isn't. And the effect of the consequences of trying to force that can be very, very extreme. It can lead to, and Oliver was getting a lot older and bigger and stronger by that time, it can lead to physical response, extreme meltdowns, violent situations, hitting, throwing objects. Slamming doors is a big thing, repeatedly slamming doors. We have a glass door in our living room. Well, not a full glass door, obviously, a door with a glass pane in it. And quite often when he's really in that meltdown mentality, he will grab that door and he will repeatedly slam it. And there's two things that you think, oh my God, the glass is going to smash, or he's going to jam his hand in the door. And then he will pick up the nearest object. It doesn't matter what that object is. He'll pick up an object and he'll throw it. He threw a whole box of eggs once across the kitchen. That took some cleaning up. And he just needs to let out that frustration physically. Quite often after that, he's fine. But you can see it in him sometimes when he's stressed, when he's reacting to something like a dog barking. Dogs barking is a massive thing, which is why sometimes the summer months, when it's lighter and dogs are more likely to be out and about more and they bark at each other. And if they go on I wish people would control their dogs. I'm not an anti-dog person, by the way. I just think there are good and bad dog owners, like there's good and bad anything else. We just seem to encounter a lot of bad dog owners who are of the ilk of, oh, he won't hurt you, and he's just being playful. And anyway, that's another story. But sometimes you can see him sort of holding it in, trying to cope, and you can tell that he just needs to let it out. And we just say to him, do you need to... We've actually said sometimes, do you need to throw something? And he will, yeah, and then as soon as he's done it, he can kind of move on. But where are we today? Well, by and large, since COVID, Oliver has not been attending school for three and a bit years now as we enter 2024. We've worked with social services, with CAMS, LD CAMS, which are organisations in the UK. You can look those up. And from memory, I should know what these stand for. I'm ashamed that I don't actually, but you become sort of complacent with these things. And hey, I'm getting older, my memory's going. I'm forgetting people's names at the minute. That's another story as well. But so we've had people like CAMS involved. We've had the school involved. The school that Oliver attends now have been absolutely wonderful. They've supported us through this process amazingly. Because during this process, during COVID, actually Oliver changed schools. That didn't help either, because when he went back, he had to go to a new school. He had to go to secondary school or high school, or whatever term you would understand that as. Grown-up school, big school, if you like. So that didn't help. But he wouldn't go, and some of these services would come, and it's always quite gratifying to us as parents seeing these professionals come into our home with these grand ideas of, don't worry, we'll get him back to school. And then they meet Oliver. And they might have some initial successes. There was a great example where one of these teams came in and they got Oliver back to his new school where he's registered now and has hardly ever been. And they got him in there one day, through subterfuge, really. They basically tricked him. They didn't tell him where he was going, which was completely the wrong way to do it. And he went for half a day, maybe just over half a day, and then they brought him back and they were like, yeah, there we go, that's good, and then we'll come again tomorrow morning and then we'll take him again. He was ready for them the next day. The next morning, and these were individuals that he was used to and comfortable with. These two people, he got to know them over time. They had come into the home, built a trust with him, played with him, did activities with him. He knew who and he was comfortable with them. And all of a sudden, they take him to this school building one day, and then the next day, boy, was he ready for them. They arrived, and he locked himself in a bathroom, and he wouldn't come out. And not for anyone, because one of these individuals, a young female who, shall we say, Oliver maybe had a little bit of a crush on. He liked her a lot, and if he wouldn't do it for her, then there's no way he's going to do it for anyone. So that was kind of gratifying to see that it's not just us sort of feeling that you get. So over time, the school have started having a lot more success, I'm happy to say. And in the last sort of 6 months or so, we've got a wonderful teaching assistant who is assigned only to Oliver. And she comes to visit him every day of the school term, Monday to Friday. And she usually comes to the house about middle of the day for maybe 1.5, maybe even 2 hours sometimes. And she started by playing with him, fun activities. She started introducing some work, things like maths and English and activities that he would do if he were in school. And he's actually really good at those. Reminds me a bit of me when I was at school. It wasn't that I couldn't do those things, it was I wasn't motivated to do those things. So anyone who can get that out of Oliver is amazing. And we slowly started introducing more people, because that's always a danger as well. If you have one person assigned to Oliver, then he can come to expect that person. And if that person is ill and a substitute turns up, that is challenging. So we've started rotating the people. We've got 3 or 4 who come now. It's mainly still that one person who he likes and trusts the most. And then we started challenging him a bit more recently. He would... and the teacher and the teaching assistant started taking him out for a small shopping trip. Because that's another thing that I've not mentioned yet. Since COVID, Oliver has become pretty much housebound, pretty much an agoraphobic, if you like. He does not like leaving the house. The only place he ever goes to this day since COVID is to his granddad's house for a few hours here and there. As I film this, he's there now. He goes about 9 in the morning. He'll probably home around 2 o'clock. Gives Louise and I a bit of a break. Means I can come in here and film a video without fear of interruption or what's going on in the house. Where was I? So yeah, he. Those were the only places he would go, to his grandparents or out with his teacher and teaching assistant, who started taking him on small shopping trips. They got him to go to a local shop, which is just 2 or 3 minutes drive, and they started giving him a shopping list. Oliver likes lists. So tick off, buy some bananas, buy some biscuits, buy some blackcurrant juice, that sort of thing, and bring them home. And then they've slowly started extending that, and they would buy something at the shop, and then they would say to him, we need to drop off these items at the school. So let's drive to the school. Oliver can stay in the car. We will take these in, and then we'll come back to your home. And that's been amazing. We actually can't believe how successful that has been. It's taken 3 or 4 years to get to that point, and we are so over the moon that he's made that progress with the support of the school. He's also medicated, I should point out. He's on a very, very low dose of fluoxetine, which is better known in the US and other parts of the world as Prozac. That seems to have helped him a lot with some of his reactions. I have to say, it has sort of leveled him out and steadied him. But those trips, they've sort of slowly got more and more to the point where they did a little bit more each time. Oliver would go to the school, and then they would say, do you want to come in and into this room? and they went into the room in the school building, did a couple of activities, then came out again. No other children. They didn't expose him to a full classroom, and eventually they've got that up. So when he goes back to school, I think he's going back January the 8th as I film this, almost a week from now, a week today, in fact. And he'll probably be going, if this continues, to school maybe 2-3 hours a day, and they're hoping to build that up. The teaching assistant will still come and collect him and then bring him home. This is the difference, actually, in that if we were to do it, if we were to say, Oliver, we'll take it, it just wouldn't happen. And again, that sounds ridiculous, but we just know that there are certain unique circumstances which will facilitate these successes or failures. And if you put us into the equation, that's not anywhere near being something we can do yet. We may get to that point. I don't know. Another example is, post-COVID, Oliver does not like us, my wife and I, being at his grandparents' house with him. That is something that he does alone. The only time that is acceptable is Christmas. So we go for the Christmas day and Boxing Day, as we call it here in the UK, to my in-laws' house to celebrate Christmas. But that's pretty much the only time of year at the minute that we can go to my in-laws' house with Oliver. We can get there in other circumstances when Oliver's out with his teachers. We can get round there and they come to us, and that's fine. But there are just certain little niche situations that we get ourselves into. But anyway, that's about where we're at right now. So as we go into 2024, there are new challenges ahead for sure. Things can start happening like that. Things can stop happening like that. It probably makes complete sense to Oliver, but it's very random to us. And who knows if we could unlock his brain, it would be incredible. It really would. But what does a typical day look like right now? There is a lot of rigidity still in our house. So on a working day, for example, I will usually get up about 6 a.m. I'm not a morning person by nature, but over the years I've had to become one. And I'll get up at 6 in my zombie-like state, and I'll sit for a good couple of hours and have a coffee or two and wake myself up, get myself ready. And then I will take my oldest son to college that he now attends around about 8:30. In those couple of hours, I might get a little bit of work done for my day job. I might get bits and pieces of emails responded to, get a bit of a head start on the day. And that's important because my day is so disrupted and so rigid that there are times of the day when I need to step away from work and attend to home life, with Oliver being here so much of the time. So I'll get back from dropping off my oldest to his college. I'll maybe then have my breakfast. I'm never quite ready for breakfast immediately. It's something I have to build up to. Then I'll get myself into my home garden office, and I'll get set up for my calls and my busy work life. And usually I have, most days I'll have a morning of calls from about 9 till at least 12, constant, one after the other, and boom, my mornings go like that. So when you move to do anything, though, when Oliver's at home, he's upstairs in either his bedroom or our bedroom most of the day. And whenever you move and open the living room door to go anywhere, he'll say, "Hello, where are you going? What are you doing?" He's very nervous so I haven't even got to this, actually. I can't believe I've not mentioned the kitchen. We can't cook any food in the house without me having to bring Oliver in here into my garden office while my wife cooks the meals. And this is all because historically, at some point, this is probably a couple of years ago now, the smoke alarm went off once when something was burning on the kitchen stove, and that freaked Oliver out, and that has stayed with him. And gradually, slowly but surely, we've lost control over nearly all of the appliances in our kitchen. We could still just about get away with sneaking the dishwasher on, but everything else, slowly but surely, we can't use when Oliver is around. We can't use the washing machine. because it's too noisy. We've had to use a laundry service for the past 2 or 3 years, which is brilliant. I mean, everything gets done for you and comes back neatly folded and smelling great, but cost a fair bit of money each week. So that's something added into our weekly budget. We every time we want to cook a meal using the microwave or the hob or the oven, I have to bring Oliver in here. And the dishwasher we can just about get away with. So every time we stand up and leave the living room, even if it's just to go to the toilet, he will nervously ask, "What are you doing?" And he's obviously nervous that you are going to try and do something in the kitchen, and he doesn't want you to do that without him coming in here. There have been times when he's been so nervous that is going to happen, that I've been in here working during the day, and all of a sudden I can be on a call, and Oliver, I will hear him screaming, I will hear him, the door of the house open, him screaming, running across, and he flings himself into the shed here, and people can see him behind me, and they probably can't hear him because Teams has noise cancellation. And I'll have to quickly excuse myself and say, this could be in front of massive customers, big global corporations, and nothing comes before Oliver in those circumstances. No matter how important the call is, I have to excuse myself. And thankfully, not 99% of the time, even every single time, everyone has always been very, very tolerant and patient of that. And I thank everyone for that. We've always managed to make that work. So yeah, that's the thing. But yeah, I get up, I come in here, I have my calls, I'll maybe go back in for a very brief lunch around about 12-ish. So, and if I want to have a cooked lunch of some sort, I'll have to go in there, get Oliver, bring him in here while my wife cooks my lunch. Otherwise, I just have something cold, a salad or a sandwich or something. That is acceptable. We can prepare non-cooked food in the kitchen without Oliver wanting to come in here. So I'll have my lunch, maybe a little coffee. I'll come back in here. I will do more work, and then which usually most of my day consists of calls. Near enough as makes no difference. It's pretty much calls and meetings all day, 9 till 5, to be honest. And anything typey, righty, emaily, whatever, or doing documents or document checks that is part of my career, my day job, I'll do out of hours. I'll do early in the morning, late at night. I stretch out my working day and make it work around my home life, and that's fine. That's what we need. That's just the way it is, and I'm actually quite comfortable and happy with that. So then we get to sort of early mid-afternoon. We get to about 2:20 at the moment, I think it is. This can change as well, and I'll tell you why in a moment. And we got into this habit at some point, and it's just stuck, and we've never got out of it. Every day, Oliver comes in here at 2:20, and we play a record on my vinyl record player. I have my old vinyl collection from the 1980s. When I got this outside garden office, I wanted to get a vinyl record player again and get out my old collection and play some. Did it once with Oliver. It must have been at that time of day, and it's stuck. And ever since, we've done it every day. And if we don't, then the consequences are unimaginable. So we have to do that. So I've got a daily slot in my work calendar every day around between sort of 2:20 and 2:30. Please do not book meetings here, because that is record time. And absolutely nothing changes that. So after record time, we'll play one record. And I've got loads of records, but there's a choice of 5 records that he will play. And I don't know how we ended up in those 5 choices either. But anyway, after that, I'll have about half an hour. Maybe it's another call. Maybe it's a bit of admin work. And then around 3 o'clock, I have to go out again, and I have to go and pick up my oldest son from college, which is a very, very big... Dropping him off in the morning is not so much of a problem. Picking him up in the afternoon is a nightmare. It's the busiest area. There's a school nearby as well. There's busy roads, traffic lights. It's awful. The really difficult, challenging aspect of that pickup as well is that I could do Teams calls in my car and on my phone, but the signal in that area is atrocious, and it's very challenging for some reason, which adds another layer of stress to me, thinking that I might be missing something important. The reason that I have to do the school run as well, it's a college run now, and have done for many years, is that Oliver does not want to go out, obviously. He only goes out certain places. If my wife tried to take him out and do that pickup, that just wouldn't work for reasons of, well, that's my job, that's a routine, that would lead to meltdowns and all sorts of consequences. So that's my job, and it is what it is. And it doesn't affect my job, broadly speaking. But it is a hassle. I could do without it, I must admit. And when school holidays come, when you get half terms, I do enjoy not having to do it, I must admit. It takes an added layer of stress out of my day. So then I get back, and then usually when we get back, my oldest son immediately wants feeding. He'll immediately want a cooked meal. So I have to bring Oliver in the shed while that's prepared. The meals that my oldest son has at that time are usually quite quick to prepare, microwavable, just a few minutes, so it doesn't disrupt too much. So then after that, I can get Oliver out, back in, finish off my day, and then a more recent example of something that's been added to that routine is Oliver likes me to be home at 5 o'clock on the dot. And I don't know where that came from, because previously I could remain here in the office till 5:30, 6 o'clock, after 6, wasn't a problem. But all of a sudden, not that long ago, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, all of a sudden he got upset if I wasn't back in the house at 5 o'clock. So that's new. So I have to plan that very carefully. I have to try and not have meetings after 5 o'clock if I can help it. Not always possible. So sometimes I'll have to get in the house and do my meetings with headphones in the living room. This office is a luxury, to be honest, because during COVID, before I had this, I was doing meetings all around the house, in the sofa, in the living room, in the car sometimes, even in the bathroom sometimes, sitting on a folding chair with the ironing board as a desk with the door locked. So this is a luxury, but there have been many, many challenges. So what happens after that? We normally get in, and then when I get in at 5 o'clock, that's usually when we like to have our early evening tea, as we call it in the UK, our early evening meal. And so I get in, bring my laptops in, put them down, and then immediately I've got to come back in with Oliver while my wife cooks the evening meal for her and me. So there you go. So we do that. We go back in. We eat. Then it's quiet for a while. It's a bit of chill time between sort of 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock, where Oliver goes for his daily shower, which is my job. Only I can do that if I'm here. It's acceptable for his mum to do that if I'm away on a business trip, which is rare these days. I tend to be away not very much on a yearly basis these days, but he accepts me going when I do, which is good, because that's necessary sometimes, obviously, for my job at Insight. So I do his shower. We come downstairs. Then usually after that, my oldest son wants his second big meal of the day, which usually ends up being a pasta dish of some sort with chicken, which normally takes about 20 so minutes to prepare. For my poor wife, it is all the cooking. At which point I come back in here with Oliver again for 20 odd minutes, and we just he sits and plays with my phone in this very chair. I sort of pace around, and that's about it. So and we bring him in to the house again. He goes back upstairs. We'll sit down. We'll try and relax, and then it gets to about 9 o'clock, I think, at the moment. And Oliver comes downstairs and he wants to play. He wants to sit in between my wife and I on the sofa, and we've got this game on our phones that he likes to watch us play together. Again, I don't know how we got into that habit, but that's happening at the moment. It'll probably fizzle out as quickly as it started at some point when Oliver gets bored with it. Everything always has to start and finish on his terms, these habits. During COVID, we went through a period of about a year and a half where, because I'd done it once, one night at about 9 o'clock, I had to make 2 paper aeroplanes and throw them every day for about a year and a half. So you got to be careful what things you start, because if you start something and he likes it, you can be doing it for a very long time on a very regular basis. So after we've completed playing that game, he'll suddenly announce, right, time for bed. And he trots upstairs, gets himself into bed, 10 o'clock. and he goes to sleep good as gold. And he normally will sleep through till about anywhere between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. No real pattern as to why, but it varies. At which point, at that sort of time he goes to bed, my wife and I will tend to go and sort of wind down a little bit for a short time. Try not to stay up too late. Try not to get into too bad habits of drinking alcohol, and to help wind down and relax. And then we'll go to bed. So that's a typical weekday at the moment. What can be added into the mix is obviously my oldest son has a lot of social activities and whatnot that he does with his college and his friends. So he's in a football team, so I take him out to play football. On a weekend, on a Sunday, he has matches. Twice a week on a Tuesday night and a Friday night, he'll have his football training. His college pickup times can be pretty random. I will sometimes drop him at his gym on a night time, and he goes to the gym for an hour. So I'm dad's taxi quite a lot. So I don't get a lot of rest, to be honest, which is why it's sometimes very tempting to stay up late and get a bit of time that's just for me. When I get to the end of the day, as Tommy Shelby in Peaky Blinders, if you watch it, once famously, one of my favourite quotes from his was, "I've learned there's no rest for me in this life, perhaps in the next." I probably butchered the accent there, but I love that quote so much, and I think, yeah, I feel you, Tommy. There's no rest for me in this world, perhaps in the next. Who knows? Anyway, I've probably missed out a ton of stuff. I know I will have. I'll hit stop on this recording and I'll think, oh, I should have said that. But there's always more videos. And who knows how long I've been talking. Probably well over an hour. Who knows? We'll soon find out. But I hope you found that interesting, informative, insightful. I hope it was eye-opening. I hope it give you a bit of a perspective about what my day-to-day life is like, because I get so many questions about it from people when I tell people about Oliver. But that's it. Life's never dull, and life is never slow-paced. There is very little rest or quiet time, that's for sure. And to be honest, when I get that, I kind of don't know what to do with it anymore. But there you go. Well, I'll wind this up. Let me know about your experiences with autism and the autism spectrum and ASD, Asperger's, and other things that have affected your own lives with well-being and mental health and things like ADHD and dyslexia, and there are so many things that I hear stories from colleagues, friends, family that I talk to. Everyone seems to know somebody who has something these days. I don't know if that's because things are happening more to people or we're just getting better awareness of these things. Interesting to hear your thoughts on that as well. But thank you for your time, your patience, and listening to me. Thank you for your likes and your shares and your subscriptions and your memberships. Please keep hitting that subscribe button. It does help me so much. I know I go on about it a lot, but it does help me so much, and I appreciate it. Okay, until next time, you take care. I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.